Hello everyone, this is part 20 of What If Naruto Was Reborn as a Shinigami, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. A month since they left Suna, and Naruto and Tenten had come far. They'd completed their tandem jutsu to launch Naruto so he could fly to near perfection, the only problem being that Tenten's reserves were still only slightly above average for a kunoichi, and if he needed to fly during a battle, then she would be less likely to be able to launch him. That's where his elemental training in wind came in. If Tenten boosted him just 20 feet off the ground, then he could power enough wind chakra under his wings to get himself going. Sanosuke had told him that the more he practiced with his wings, then the less wind he'd need to get himself lifted off. It would be like teaching a baby bird to fly. The instinct was there, all he needed was that push out of the nest. Even so, they had come far in their tutelage under Jiraiya. The old ninja had not taken it easy on either of them, insisting that they go all out against him because if they didn't, he would hurt them. Naruto and Tenten had found out the hard way he wasn't playing around when he burned off some of Naruto's feathers and buried Tenten deep in a swamp when he thought they weren't trying hard enough. Jiraiya had become more serious in their training. They still hadn't heard from Itachi, and that was cause for worry. Perhaps, if he played his cards right, he could wheedle the information out of whichever members came after them next. If it was the immortals, like Sanosuke had said, then it shouldn't be too hard. His sources said neither one was known for common sense. Currently, the three sat around their campfire, Jiraiya jotting down ideas for his next story and Tenten polishing and sharpening her myriad of weapons one by one. The only one who appeared to be doing nothing was Naruto, but that wasn't true. He was meditating, trying to reach the spirit that resided in his hammer or his chain. He wasn't sure which one contained the spirit. It had been thought that it was the chain, since it appeared to be sentient, like Keppuku, but then again, his hammer was able to evolve or shift into other forms. Surely it had a spirit. Sadly, he had found nothing yet, not even a whisper. He'd contacted Keppuku to see what he was doing wrong, and the diminutive spirit within the sword had shrugged and grinned at him. I do know. Maybe it just works with you but doesn't like you. Can I taste you again, sweet corn? Naruto sighed and opened his eyes slowly. Another failed attempt to at least talk to the spirit. He cut his eyes to Tenten and watched her hands as she rubbed them along the sickle she now held, Keppuku resting on the ground beside her. He wished he could talk to his spirit like she could hers. He cast his gaze to Jiraiya and envied the old man his aloofness and free-spiritedness. Jiraiya, despite what the world thought it knew, was only happy when he was around his apprentice, Tsunade, or when he was writing one of his books. They were the only things that kept him sane nowadays. Naruto let out a huff of breath and leaned his chin on his hands. He needed to come up with a hobby to keep him entertained. He had kept a plant while at home, but out here that was worthless. Perhaps, he should write a book as well. Nah, that was Jiraiya's domain. Maybe the old man could teach him how to draw or write calligraphy, or teach him about something. Suddenly a thought came to Naruto and he snapped his head toward Jiraiya. Hey Ero Senin. Jiraiya growled and didn't even bother to look up, opting instead to keep writing. What brat? I'm busy. I have to visit a temple. Both Tenten and Jiraiya looked at him quizzically and blinked. Never took you for the religious type, Naruto, current situation notwithstanding. Why do you want to visit a temple? I'd like to talk to the monks and see if maybe they can help me talk to the spirit in my weapons. Besides, meeting a warrior of Kami would be a boost to their faith, you know. Jiraiya nodded and went back to marking in his notebook. I'll think about it. Naruto nodded and went back to watching Tenten clean her weapons. It was oddly calming to him. After 2 days of travel with Jiraiya's uncommon sense of direction, they found themselves before a modest temple deep in the forest, about 4 miles off the beaten path. It was a temple for passerby and pilgrims, a temple that was cared for by only select monks that worshipped the Kami. Naruto had his wings hidden so as not to scare the monks at first, and Tenten had hidden away Keppuku in her seal. Jiraiya had taken him up to the steps of the temple, where an old balding man sat, 6 dots marring his forehead. The old man had opened his eyes slowly and smiled at him, before clasping his hands together before him and bowing his head and speaking in a raspy voice. Greetings, travelers. The Temple of Kami welcomes you. What is it that you seek here? Tenten and Jiraiya turned to Naruto and watched as he walked before the monk and bowed. I seek peace and enlightenment. I wish to speak with you all about your way, and offer you a glimpse of a warrior of Kami in return. The monk's eyebrow raised a fraction of an inch and he nodded his head. So, the times are upon us at last. I bid you welcome, warrior of Kami. Naruto blinked and looked at the man, stupefied. What do you mean, the times? You knew I was coming. The old man smiled and shook his head, grunting as he stood and cracked his back. We did not know you were coming specifically, no. But we knew that one day, a warrior of Kami would grace us with his presence and that he would bear a mark that would identify him. Where is your mark? Naruto silently bade his wings to appear and watched with mild amusement as the man's eyes widened comically. He spread his wings to their fullest span and then folded them behind him, ruffling them slightly. Is that proof enough? The monk nodded his head and turned to the other two. And who are you? His companions. Jiraiya nodded and started to do his dance before the monk held up his hand. I know who you are, Jiraiya of the Sannin. There is no need for your infamous introduction. Your deeds, both bad and good, are known here, although, to our pleasure, the good outweighs the bad. Jiraiya sulked at not getting to do his dance and the monk turned to Tenten. And you, young lady. What are you to the warrior? Tenten unsealed Keppuku with a flourish and sat the giant feather on her shoulder, grinning at the monk. I'm his soul mate. We're bound to each other. This is Keppuku, my sword. She's been with me since Hoshigaki SD. We had heard that he was no longer of the mortal coil. Perhaps in his next life he can wash away some of his sins. The old monk walked down the steps carefully and held his hand out to Tenten. I had never thought there would be 2 warriors. May I hold her, please? She reluctantly let the sword go and the monk grasped it tenderly, almost reverently. He ran his hand down the razor-sharp edge of the feather and smiled when it nicked his finger, before handing it back. So she has returned, rid of the taint that she had acquired. This temple, once upon a time, housed her, you know. It was not her first home, nor was she born here, but for a while this was her home. After her maker and first master SD, she had many evil masters until a warrior monk acquired her and cleansed her and brought her here so that we could watch over her. Tenten stood in rapture of the story until the monk laughed and turned around. But that is a story for another time. Come, I shall call together the brothers and we shall eat with the warriors. It has been too long since a feast was held here in the name of Kami. They watched as the monk shuffled off toward the huge doorway and pulled a rope that hung off to the side. The clang of a bell rang out and the doors swung open to reveal a large courtyard with a pond in the middle. Around it sat a group of meditating monks, and when they looked up and saw Naruto and Tenten, they sprang to their feet and ran over immediately, bowing when they had stopped. The 2 teens stood dumbfounded at the show of respect and asked the old monk what was going on. He simply smiled as he called out instructions and the younger monks ran here and there, getting food prepared and setting up low tables to eat at. I was visited many months ago by an angel in my dreams. He told me that one day soon, a warrior of Kami would come to see me and that I would illuminate his path and galvanize his will, so that he could walk the path of justice. This warrior would have 2 companions, one a ninja of great renown, the other a budding female warrior, and they would seek solace within our walls. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath before opening them slowly and looking Naruto straight in the eyes. The boy didn't notice the other monks gathering around again, watching the old monk and the young blonde intently. The warrior would have seen much in his young life, would have been hated, would have seen death, would have taken lives. The warrior would be Kami's right hand in the mortal plane and would have to make many tough decisions. The angel told me that this young man, with the weight of the world on his shoulders, would need me, a simple monk, to reassure him that he was doing good in the world. Naruto's eyes grew wide as the old monk and the others all bowed low before him. The old man stayed bent as he spoke. What has been asked of you should never be asked of a mere man. You have been asked to rid the world of great evils. You are a hero and were born to be such. Heroes are not made, they are born to be heroes. They can do nothing else, because in the back of their minds, They have to do what is right and righteous. You came here with an unbidden question. Am I doing the right thing? Do these men deserve death at my hands? The answer is yes. The monks all stood straight again and he wondered at the kindness in their eyes. You must understand, young one. We devoted all our lives to the kami. We devote our lives to helping travelers and teaching pilgrims of the path of what is right. We teach because that is what we are compelled to do. If kami told us to pick up swords and defend the innocent, then that is what we would do. But that is not our part of the devotion. That is your part. You are the right arm of kami, and a strong arm you are. His gentle smile warmed Naruto's heart. Few had ever treated him with such kindness. The old monk clapped the boy on the shoulder. Now then, please, partake of our meal that we have prepared. Afterwards, we will speak more with you and your companions. I am sure you are tired from your journey. Naruto nodded and led the way to the tables, Jiraiya and Tenten following. The monk smiled and watched as they walked on before following them. The warrior has finally come and the times are upon us. It seems my time as a servant of kami grows short. The prophecy will soon be fulfilled and the world will once again have light overcome the darkness. Supper was a surprisingly light affair. Naruto, Tenten, and Jiraiya spent their time eating and joking with each other and the monks merrily before the tables were cleared away and only the old monk and the three travelers were left. The old monk sighed and slipped his hands into his billowing sleeves, his bones chilled with the evening's air. Now then, I know that I said I would help you see that your path is true and I will. The angel told me that to accomplish your task you must kill one you once saw as a brother. Do you believe you can do that? When you see his face, will you be able to do the deed? Will you be able to fulfill your duty to kami and the world? Naruto lowered his head, his eyes obscured by his hair. The monk had said nothing when they had arrived, but the solid silver eyes of Naruto had unnerved him for a moment until he remembered what else the angel had told him in the dream. If he could help the boy steal his nerve, then he would have no need for the intimidating eyes and he could have his blue ones back. The silver eyes had been Kami's gift to Naruto to help intimidate his enemies, but in exchange, they hid away the blue eyes that everyone fell in love with. If Naruto could steal his resolve, then the silver eyes would be unnecessary, for a true warrior did not need intimidation. His reputation would precede him. Naruto finally lifted his head again and caught the monk's aged green eyes with his silver ones, his serious gaze set as if made of stone. I will do what must be done. If it is required of me to kill Sasuke, then that is what I will do. He has betrayed everyone with his selfishness and has sided with one of the most evil men alive. I will do what I must do. The monk nodded his head approvingly and tapped the boy in the forehead with his finger. Naruto rubbed the spot and screwed his eyes shut in confusion. What was that for? Open your eyes, young one. Naruto opened his eyes and heard Tenten gasp, before she grabbed his face and turned it towards her. Your eyes, they changed back. They're blue again. When he just stared at her, she reached into her pouch and pulled out a kunai, buffed to perfection, and handed it to him. He looked into the knife and his eyes widened as he turned his head this way and that in disbelief. His eyes were blue again. His reflection smiled back at him as he looked into the kunai as he began to laugh. His eyes were blue again. He handed the knife back to Tenten and bowed his head to the monk. Thank you. I can't tell you how good it is to see my own eyes again after so long. The monk simply smiled and stood again, making his way toward his chambers. He turned as he reached the door and bowed to the three again. I only did my part, young one. Now you must do yours. You are blessed by Kami and worthy of her attention. Both of you are. And you, Jiraiya, need to have more faith. You may stay here as long as you wish until you deem it fit to travel onward. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to bed. The night air does not agree with these old bones. Before the monk could shut the door, Naruto called out to him. What is your name? The old man looked at him quizzically for a moment before he smiled. As a servant of Kami, we have no need for names. My birth name given to me by my mother was Hiro. My name is Hiro. Naruto and Tenten stood and bowed to the monk. Tenten gave him a gentle smile. We thank you then, Hiro-san, for all you've done. Rest well. You've earned it. The old monk chuckled and ducked inside his room, laying down carefully on his bed. Before he drifted off to sleep, he said a silent prayer. May these children do your bidding to the best of their ability, Kami-sama. I have done my part. I can only hope that the chosen warriors will do theirs. The man once known as Hero drifted off to a peaceful slumber, his heart at peace that he had done his part. Naruto and Tenten spent the next couple of days exploring the temple and training outside the walls while Jiraiya gave instructions and wrote in his book. It was a relaxing time for them, and Naruto actually prayed for once in his life. He had never been religious before. After all, what God would allow someone to live their life as miserably as his had been, when evil people didn't seem to suffer at all? After his prayer, he had been visited by Sanosuke, who sat down with him and explained that yes, his life had been hard, but that was because the truly strong could suffer and persevere. Only Naruto could have fought through what had happened to him and come out stronger for it on the other side. The boy had begrudgingly accepted the answer, but not before telling Sanosuke to tell Kami that he thought her choice selection sucked. The angel had chuckled before he disappeared and left him with a nugget of wisdom. When you come to heaven, tell her yourself. Naruto had sworn he would do just that. He had half a mind to put the deity over his knee when he got there, for all the suffering she caused for her grand plans. He shook his head immediately and cut his eyes to where Tenten was going through some katas. Better to not voice that opinion, lest his jealous soulmate try to kill either him or Kami. Naruto knew Tenten was brash enough to try it. They learned about the history of the temple while they were there and found that it was pretty simple except for housing the sword known as Keppuku for a time. Pilgrims used to come all the time to get a glimpse of the mystical sword. Back in those days, Keppuku had merely been a massive sword with jewels and runes set into her handle. Without a master to hold her, she had reverted back to her original form. Some pilgrims had come up with the idea that she was the sword of Kami herself, but the monks quickly put that notion to rest. Keppuku was simply Keppuku. She was not made by Kami and Kami never held her. The idea that she was Kami's was a man-made idea. She had been made in the worship of another god after all, long ago. No one even knew what the writings and scribblings on her meant anyway, so her story was lost, as she couldn't even tell Tenten how old she truly was. This bothered Tenten phenomenally. She hated not knowing the origin of her weapons, as each one was precious to her. The monks had informed Naruto that they could not help him talk to his spirit, if indeed there was one. Naruto was somewhat upset that they recommended more meditation, but accepted it nonetheless. It wasn't the monk's fault after all that his spirit was being a quiet little prick. On the third day of their stay, Jiraiya had said they needed to be moving on. Staying in one place was a bad idea with the immortals on their tail, and they didn't want innocents caught in the crossfire of a fight with them. The monk formerly known as Hero had asked who they meant when they said, the immortals. Once told who they were and what they did, his face grew dark. We have heard of this Jashin. He is not a god, merely a demon with delusions of grandeur. He gives his followers the ability to survive any wound by mortal hands. This, hidden, as you call him, will fall by your hands. He is a heretic and truly evil. His religion, if you can call it that, exists only to make the rivers run red with blood so that this Jashin demon can be reborn in our world again. Naruto nodded and asked how, if he couldn't be killed by mortal hands, would they be able to defeat them? The monk had chuckled and slipped his hands inside his sleeves. You are not truly mortal yourself. Did you not tell me that the angel Sanosuke told you you were becoming an angel? You and Tenten left your mortality behind the moment you both chose to walk the path Kami gave you. With Hidden's death, hopefully so will this, religion, of Jashin fall. The two teens had nodded and left for their room to get some rest before they headed out again. Jiraiya had stood in front of the monk and looked him in the eyes. I'd like to thank you for what you've done for Naruto. You helped him realize what he must do. Nothing we said would have helped him. You've been an invaluable help to us. The monk nodded and watched as Jiraiya trudged off to his room. You know, Jiraiya, you might try praying more often. It can help alleviate some of your own problems of the heart. Jiraiya turned to answer but found the monk gone. He slowly trekked back to his room and shut the door and got into bed. He lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling before rolling out and kneeling on the floor. Looking around to make sure nobody was watching, he clasped his hands and bowed his head. Kami, it's me, Jiraiya. I know it's been a long time since I've prayed to you. Hell, I can't remember the last time I did. For the longest time, I didn't believe in a god. How, in our world so full of strife and war, could a god exist? I was convinced that if there was a god, that men had killed that god long ago. He took a deep shuddering breath and clasped his hands harder. All my life I've asked why things were taken from me. I never knew my parents. I've never known true peace, except when I was with Minato and Kushina or when I'm around Naruto. I have a small modicum of peace when I'm with Tsunade, but that's because she's a familiar face and once upon a time, I loved her. A tear rolled down the white-haired ninja's face as his eyes screwed shut. For the longest time, I hated you. It seemed you took everything from me. In one night, I lost a student who was more like a son, a friend who was more like a daughter, and a godson that I couldn't bear to look at. I've lost my teacher at the hands of one I called friend. For the longest time, I cursed your name. Then I found Naruto again and my heart lifted. I felt happy again. It was like seeing Minato and Kushina all bound up together in one hyperactive, nutty little boy. I didn't say it then, but I thank you for bringing him back into my life. He's been the only thing to keep me sane these past few years. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. I'm sorry I cursed you. I just want to help Naruto now, to do your bidding. If this is my last request, allow me to live long enough to see him grow and persevere from this. It's selfish, but don't take away the last thing I have in my life. Jiraiya wiped his eyes and crawled into bed, pulling the covers tight over him all the way to his chin. Allow me to help him and maybe, just maybe, I can redeem myself along the way. Jiraiya nodded off to sleep, swearing he felt someone touch his cheek tenderly as his eyes shut. He went to sleep with his heart lighter than it had felt in years. Perhaps Naruto had been right in wanting to come here. Perhaps Sanosuke was right in telling him to have faith. Sometimes all you needed was a bit of faith. Kami smiled to herself as she listened to Jiraiya's prayer. She knew what the old ninja had been through. She had watched sorrowfully as he had cursed her name and had turned his back on her. Watching him drift off to sleep with a smile on his face, she caressed his cheek, happy that he had made his peace with her. You've done fine in life, Jiraiya. And I promise, you'll see the boy accomplish his mission. You'll see him become a fine man. This I swear. Jiraiya, Tenten, and Naruto waved to the monks as they departed. The monks had accepted them wholeheartedly and had helped them and counseled them on any problems they had. Jiraiya was smiling softly as they left. He felt at peace for the first time in years and it showed in his step and attitude. He felt light. Naruto bowed deeply to the monks one last time and Tenten did the same. The monks asked to see the warriors in the glory one last time before they left and the teens acquiesced. Naruto, with his wings spread wide, used his chain to hold his hammer aloft while Tenten unsealed Keppuku and held her to the sky. The monks said their thanks and the trio set off to their next destination. At their camp that night, Naruto watched as Jiraiya tore through his novel with new fervor, smiling the whole time. When asked what had inspired him, the old ninja had smiled and pointed up. Divine inspiration. And he left it at that. Naruto had sat there a while longer, using a kunai to carve up a stick, before his curiosity got the better of him. Where are we headed now? The land of waves. Naruto, and went back to carving on his stick. Tenten looked up from her polishing and smiled. I hear that you're pretty popular there, Naruto. The blonde shrugged and kept whittling. I know a couple people there, but I don't know anything about being popular there. Both Tenten and Jiraiya stopped what they were doing and gaped at him. You mean you haven't heard? Naruto huffed and stopped his ministrations. Heard what exactly? Tenten and Jiraiya shared a glance before shrugging and going back to what they were doing. Jiraiya spoke as he put his pencil back to the paper. Never mind. You'll find out when we get there. Naruto scowled and began to whittle harder. He hated to be kept in the dark. All the monks gathered on the steps of the temple as two figures approached. One was a giant of a man, wearing a strange hat while the other carried a large, three-bladed scythe. The two stopped just short of the temple and the one with the scythe fell to his knees and clasped his hands together, as if in prayer, while mumbling gibberish. The taller man snorted and walked forward. We're looking for 3 people who passed through here. A blonde boy with a large hammer, a brown-haired girl with a large sword, and a white-haired buffoon dressed up like a kabuki. Have you seen them? The oldest monk there stepped forward and nodded. Yes, we have seen them. Where are they? I shall not tell you where they went, Kakazu of Waterfall. You and your organization's deeds are known even here. Kakazu snorted again and turned to Hidden just as the man finished his prayer. Praise be to Jashin. What do they know? They won't tell us where they've gone. Oh, well then, it appears some heretics have to s. Hidden might have been the slowest of the Akatsuki, but to simple monks, he was frighteningly fast. At the end of his assault only the old monk known as Hiro remained standing. I won't tell you anything, Hidden, worshipper of Jashin. That demon's teachings will s with you. Hidden laughed long and hard and scratched the man's arm with his scythe before stepping back and drawing a circle with a triangle in it, his skin taking on a sickly black color with white stings similar to a skeleton. You'll talk. Eventually they all talk. Now then, motherfucker, feel the power of Jashin flow through you. Hidden espered himself in the leg with his scythe and the monk cried out, grasping his leg in pain before looking to the transformed Hidden. Lovely, isn't it? The pain I mean. It's a gift from Jashin-sama. My pain is the pain of others, but I can bear it since I can't s. You on the other hand, what has Kami given you to make you immortal? He espered his arm and Hiro screamed in agony as both his arm and leg hung limply. I can keep this up all day, old man. Where is the Jinchuriki? Hiro grit his teeth and glared at the blackened man. I'll never tell you anything. Kami be praised, I'll tell you nothing. Hidden frowned and raised his scythe in the air. Praise be to Jashin-sama. I offer this s of a heretic to you, that you may bless the earth once more with your presence. Praise be to Jashin. Hidden swept his scythe down and plunged it into his heart, wincing as it took hold and watched the monk gurgle blood from his mouth and fall over s on the steps of the temple. The silver-haired man transformed slowly back to his normal self and turned to Kakazu. We didn't learn anything, but it shouldn't be too hard to pick up the trail. Kakazu watched as the man sat on the ground and began to mutter to himself again. The giant sighed and looked back to the temple. What shall we do now? Hidden looked up with a maniacal grin. Burn it. Kakazu smiled and let his fire mask come out before torching the temple, watching with glee as it burned to the ground and smoldered, the beautiful writings of the monks and the paintings they had done gone forever. It would take a while to pick the Jinchuriki's trail back up, but nothing they hadn't done before. It was a nice side trip anyway, even if there was no bounty. Hidden sat and watched the temple burn with unmitigated glee. He closed his eyes, feeling the heat of the flames and smiled. Praise be to Jashin-sama. The heretics of the world burn to ashes and your will be done. Praise be to Jashin-sama. The Jinchuriki would always be there. It wasn't every day you got to burn the church of the Kami heretics after all. A nice feather in the cap of Jashin-sama. X. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.